Hey, good morning, friends. Rob Hipp here for the Rotary Club of Georgetown. It's 11:51 a.m. This is our normal time of fellowship. We usually get started about 12:15. So as a reminder, just take this opportunity to say hello to fellow members. If you're in the YouTube chat, you can just type there. If you have member phone numbers, feel free to give a member a call and just check up on them. Ask how everybody's doing today. We'll hear from our club president, George Lorigan, before too long. Again, the meeting will officially start around 12:15. Just use this time for fellowship. Hope everybody is having a wonderful and safe Friday. We'll check back in here in just a few moments. If you're a guest, thank you for joining us as well. Again, this is the Rotary Club of Georgetown, our virtual meeting. We'll start soon.
right out. With the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Thank you so much for joining us today. We haven't officially started our club meeting yet. We'll start in about 15 minutes, 14 minutes, I guess. Just wanted to welcome you to our social time we have before our club meeting. Got about 14 minutes before we actually kick off. Take this time now as you're listening in on YouTube Live to reach out and call fellow Rotarians. Check on them, make sure they're doing well. Make sure that they have the things that they need to take care of, and make sure that they're not left out in the dark by themselves. That's very, very important. Our club is part of our family, and we want everyone to always stay connected. So thank you very much. I'll be back with you possibly before 12:15, but definitely at 12:15. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to reach out to each other. God bless you.
Hey, good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Texas. This is our time of fellowship. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes, and we will hear from our club president, George Lorgan. Thanks for being a part of our meeting today, and we will be back on here in just a couple of minutes as we get underway. If you're on the YouTube chat, feel free to say hello there if you're able to type on that. If you have an opportunity to call someone and say hello, do that as well. But we will get started here in just about a minute. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Friday. We'll get started soon, friends. Thank you for being here today.
We're good, George.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Texas. My name is George Lorgan. I am honored to serve as the president of your club this year. And I want to welcome everyone to the club, and we are very, very excited to have you here today. So let's get the meeting started. Reese, are you available for our invocation?
Yes. Please join me in a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing our Rotary Club together in fellowship. Help us to know your love and grace and help guide us to do your will. Amen.
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 Thank you. And Rod, are you available for our pledge?
Absolutely. Let's gather together and say the Pledge of Allegiance in our homes. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rod, thank you so very much. And Roger.
Hello, everybody. So today's milestones, I hope everybody has their beverage with them. We have members' birthdays. Today is Henry Yu's birthday. Happy birthday, Henry. Spouse birthdays, we have Ray Barron's wife, Beth, on May the 9th. Then we have Clark Thurman's wife, Linda Scarborough. Her birthday is May 10th. And then we have Brian Jameson's wife, Kelly. Her birthday is May the 12th. For anniversaries, we have Dennis and Maxine Pepin, 56 years on May the 9th. Dennis,
actually, that's the Heinz anniversary. It's actually 57.
Okay, well, it says 56 here, and either way, she's a saint.
She is.
And then we have Denise and Travis White's anniversary of 23 years on May the 11th. Salute.
Salute. Thank you, Roger. I'd also like to take a special moment here to welcome all visiting Rotarians and guests. Some of our guests we have on the Zoom call, if they would just very briefly introduce, say your name.
I'm Tom Howard. I'm visiting from the Rotary Club of Austin.
Welcome, Tom. Jim?
Jim Burke, hope to be inducted today and looking forward to being officially part of the club.
Very good. Who's next? Chris?
Chris Walker, Austin, Texas. Also looking forward to be inducted.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much. Welcome all the guests. Dennis, what do you have for us today?
Well, other than celebrating our Heinz anniversary tomorrow, that's it.
That's it. Anniversary. And yes, I am wearing my pin.
Good. Okay.
Thank you for always helping to encourage me to do that. George Oliver, I believe you have some special inductions today.
Yes, we have with us today Jim Burke and Chris Walker. We were going to induct them, but we've changed our minds, so let's just move on. Well, they're with us today. Both of them had their proposals accepted by the board. They went through their mandatory waiting period. They have undergone orientation and are going to be inducted today. So let's get to that. So Jim Burke and Chris Walker, it is my great pleasure on behalf of the board of directors and members of the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Texas, to welcome you as members. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and international peace can be achieved when professional men and women are united under the banner of service. Not everyone is meant to be a Rotarian. We select individuals that are committed to service and will be active participants in our projects and supporters of our foundation. You have both been selected for membership because your fellow Rotarians are confident that you not only exhibit the characteristics that will allow you to impart the message of Rotary, but also that our principles and standards are safe in your keeping. You will be a representative of Rotary in all phases of your professional and personal life. And because of that, our community will know and judge Rotary by how you embody its ideals in your character and service. Rotary is not a political organization, but Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship. Rotary is not a charitable organization, but our activities throughout our community and the world exemplify our responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, but our beliefs are built on eternal principles that have been the moral compass of people throughout the ages. This day may mark the beginning of many years of devoted service and fellowship, or it may not. Above all else, what Rotary gives to you and what you give Rotary is entirely your choice. You will have opportunities to serve on a committee in one of our areas of service and to attend numerous functions related to Rotary activities. What you do with those opportunities is up to you. We encourage you to be more than just members of a Rotary club. Instead, we encourage you to choose to be Rotarians. Jim Burke and Chris Walker, I am pleased to I will be pleased to present to you a Rotary pin when I meet you in person. Normally we do this face to face, but I will be presenting you with your Rotary pin, your name badge, and a packet of information about Rotary. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim Burke and Chris Walker to membership in the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Texas. And Jim, would you like to make say a couple of words?
Yes, please. I'd first like to, thank Roger Chappell, for reintroducing me to Rotary. I'd been an active participant with the West Austin Rotary Club, had a moving offices, and was really looking for another Rotary club that just fit. So I'm just so pleased to be inducted and to be part of the Rotary Club of Georgetown, and look forward to when we can get together and start helping our community. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, would you like to say a word?
Well, I appreciate all the lunch meetings I was able to come to before joining Rotary, and I've really enjoyed everybody that I've met so far, and I'm really anxious to get involved in the serving capacity. and this is my daughter. So thank you very much. I'm glad to be a Rotarian.
Great. Well, thank you, Jim and Chris. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Georgetown, and welcome to the beginning of your Rotary journey.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Dr. Benold.
I had an opportunity to see a summary about the status of COVID written by an infectious disease doctor who is now retired and is in the organization for which I was teaching a continuing education class. And he gave me a copy of a summary that he had written. And I just thought that I would share some of that with y'all today. We're going to talk about fatalities. For the Texas data, here in Texas, 80% of the fatalities have been over the age of 70, and only 8% have been younger than 50. So remember that factoid. Now, if you look at deaths per million population, New York State has had 1,240. That's deaths per million. New Jersey, 870. Massachusetts, 560. California, 56. That's 1/10 of Massachusetts. And that's less than 1/20th of New York's. And Texas has had 30, which is half of California's. So it's very interesting to speculate, why has the Northeast had so much higher rate of deaths per million than we have in Texas or California? And I don't know the answer to that speculation, but I think something has to do with how densely populated the states are. Texas and California are relatively sparsely populated compared to the Northeast. And another thing is Texas and California have a younger population than the Northeast. It's interesting to me also that 40% of all the deaths from COVID have occurred in nursing homes. So the takeaway from this for that infectious disease doctor is that if you're 70 or older, you still have to be very careful, because remember, that's 80% of the fatalities. But that younger people should go back to work, and that next fall schools should open, sports should resume, and colleges should resume. That's his opinion. And that's my report for this week.
Dr. Benold, thank you very, very much. Some interesting thoughts there. We'll see how all that plays out. That's definitely a very interesting perspective. A lot of good facts, a lot of different understanding there. Very good. All right, so let's go on to some of the different volunteer opportunities that exist and that we've looked at and that are very much in need of help. We talked about this last week, Faith in Action, Michelle Wilkerson, needing folks to help. And then the specific area that they need help in has to do with care calls. Basically, it's a twice-a-week commitment, calling to seniors and making sure they stay connected. Something that George Oliver has set up in our club, and it works very, very effective and is very, very important. And I think that that's a super, super opportunity to volunteer. You're going to volunteer literally out of your home and still make a significant difference in the lives of other people. So I highly encourage you to be a part of that. Caring Place, Dr. Swain.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everyone. George, before I make this announcement, I'm just piggybacking or thinking about Dr. Benold's report. I'm wondering what the demographics of our club are with regard to the age factor. I'm, for one, am over that 70 threshold, so I'm going to be extremely careful, and I've got my mask and I just took off my gloves, so I would encourage all of us who are over that threshold to be extra cautious. The community services that are provided by the Caring Place primarily is food distribution. The Rotary Club last week the board approved a grant to the Caring Place, and that will allow them to purchase food from the Central Texas Food Bank. They're also asking for individual donations, and you can see what those individual donations allow the Caring Place to purchase, which they then distribute to families in need. And at this point, they are not even using their income criteria for distributing food. Anyone who shows up at the Caring Place on Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday for a package of food will be given one. So if I would encourage you to please be supportive of the Caring Place. If I could move on, we did last week check with the fire department, and they're still have a receptacle to receive PPE. And I know that the county has recently provided some funding for that as well. I don't know if Chris Cash is on, George, but those are a couple of other announcements that are following. The Boys and Girls Club and the Salvation Army are both providing services in our community. The Boys and Girls Club is providing child care for first responders, and they needed last week individuals to pick up the food from the schools in order to get it to those youngsters. And there's a sign-up link on the slide that you're viewing now. The next slide, I believe, is from Jim Dusher, who's on the advisory board of the Salvation Army. And Salvation Army is also collecting food. There are barrels at Jim's home. Laura Spradlin, who is the local county coordinator, with her residential address, as well as the Salvation Army on South Austin Avenue. Thank you so much for your generosity. I know that many of us have had the opportunity to make contributions, and I know that they are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And I want to add a little thing in here. After this was put out last week or the week before, they also connected with the Faith in Action, and Michelle was looking for how to connect then to the Salvation Army, which connected them because they have there were a lot of folks that they were bringing in the past that brought things to help them needed food, so that that connection was made between those two different organizations through a Rotarian, not myself, but through another Rotarian, and allowed them to continue, to serve some other seniors that were in need of being served. Thought that was a fantastic connection that I saw made.
Great. You have a slide George has posted now of the recent grants that were approved. The Caring Place I mentioned earlier. The YMCA is also providing child care and camps for children of the essential workers and first responders. And Any Baby Can is a service that provides low-income mothers with information as well as supplies, particularly if they're first-time mothers. And our grant will allow them to purchase 50 gift cards to distribute to those families.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Ron. Larry Baird.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to take just a moment to talk to us a little bit about what Ramp Bill will look like on not tomorrow, but next Saturday, May 16th?
Right, yeah. As you all know, we did not build ramps in April, and we had quite a bit of discussion as to whether to begin in May. So what we've done, we've come up with some criteria which we feel will help to make us as safe and healthy as possible, as well as the client. First of all, we're going to limit the size of the teams to 9, be a maximum of 9 members on the team. We want each member to wear a mask or a bandana to protect others on the team. And trying to maintain a distance between members, we'd like for you to work in pairs and try to maintain your distance from each other. Now, there's sometimes you'll need to be 3 or 4 together, but we don't want to have congregations of 5 or 6 or 7 as we occasionally do. Sanitizer and wipes will be available for those who are not wearing gloves, and you'll have the opportunity to wipe down the handles of the equipment that you're using. And we'll have sanitizer available for use for anyone. So these are going to be the requirements. Our build will be in, I guess you could say, downtown Florence Saturday. And if we can all adhere to these requirements, I think we'll be better off for it.
I added one thing on, Larry, that was kind of obvious, but is always best stated. If you're sick, you cannot participate.
Right. If you feel bad, in any way, just don't participate. I don't know how many we'll have, but again, we need to make sure we limit our team members as well. I know sometimes with Rotary, if we have other groups, we'll have 12, 13, or 14, but we want to maximize the number of our team members.
So for this build, what we need to do is I need each person who's going to be able to come on the build to let me know, so that we know the number we're going to have, we know who we're going to have out there. That way we can ensure that we don't. I don't want to have people show up and then say, "I'm sorry, I've already got 9 people." That would be horrible, because I know that everyone comes to serve, and I really appreciate that service. So if you're able to come, let me know. The first 9 that sign up are the 9 that we'll have, and I'm very, very excited and honored to be able to work with y'all. And don't worry, Dennis will probably be there instructing Henry again on how to use a drill. We understand that. So thank you.
Also, the modules will have already been built, so this will minimize the time we'll be on the site, and the modules will be on site Saturday when everyone shows up.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Larry.
Thank you.
A brief look at our calendar and what we got coming up. This afternoon, another special Zoom district meeting, well worth attending. There's a lot of great information that gets put out in those, and you can connect with Rotary members from around our district and around the entire nation. Exciting news. We've been talking about this. It's been announced almost every week. The new Field of Honor website goes live on Monday, May 11th. Monday, May 11th. So next week we have a board meeting before this, so that'll be from 10:45 to 11:45. And then virtual club meeting starting just as normal as 11:45. And unless I have this wrong, I think it's supposed to be our Paul Harris Fellow presentations. And then as we already talked about, the ramp build on Saturday. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark Wells. He's with the Patriot Guard Riders and been a tremendous supporter of the Rotary Club, and we're excited to hear what he has to say.
All right. Thank you, George. Let me get my screen shared here and make sure we can hear the audio. Let's see. Share computer sound. Okay. Yeah, as George said, my name is Mark Wells. I'm the owner and president of K-Tech Cleanroom Systems. We build high purity environments for semiconductor, pharmaceutical, those kinds of industries, and 23 years old now, and we moved up to Georgetown about 3 years ago. And my wife and I moved to Georgetown about a year ago, so we were enjoying Georgetown from Round Rock earlier. But I'm not really here to talk about that today. I'm here to talk about my avocation, which is the Patriot Guard Riders. I became involved in the Patriot Guard back in 2006. And I have put a little presentation here together for you to explain what that is, and help you understand how our veteran support organization does what we do and why we do that. So I'm going to put on my PGR hat and get this video started to open. I'm going to play about 8 minutes of this 12-minute video. So hopefully you guys can all hear it well. Let me know if you can't, and we'll get going.
Just 17 days shy of his 27th birthday, Army Sergeant Brennan Gibson and 2 of his fellow servicemen were killed when an IED obliterated the Humvee that they were riding in.
He wasn't even supposed to be going out on that mission. It was a last-minute mission. And they were kind of getting everything together, and Brennan said, "I'm going with you guys." And they said, "No, you don't need to go." And he said, "No, if my guys are going, I'm going too."
He showed his care for others, even in an adverse situation, and didn't give it a second thought.
Parents are not supposed to outlive their children, and the pain you see in the eyes of those that have is truly heartbreaking. In the days that follow the death of a child, there is a vacuum so great and anguish so painful, a parent struggles just to get their feet out of bed and face another day.
Unless you've lost a child, and especially to war, you really don't get it. I have never experienced any kind of grief like this before than what it's like to see your child die before you do.
In death, the respectful, ceremonial, and precise nature of a military funeral is a powerful statement and a living testimony to those who have lost so much. It is the reverent and moving act of respect that pays tribute to the fallen and honors the ultimate sacrifice a warrior can give.
His birthday being on the 27th was just almost a calling that was the day we were going to bury him too.
I thought it was kind of neat that on his 27th birthday, we would honor his and celebrate his life, as well as say goodbye or see ya.
Imagine if you can, however, in the midst of such unbearable grief, in the middle of their deepest sorrow and struggling to cope with their loss, they receive word that someone's planning to picket the funeral of their son and even make their day worse.
My casualty affairs officer had pulled me aside as soon as I landed, and he said there's a chance that there will be some protesters at Brennan's funeral.
In Kansas, there is a radical and extremely misguided group of fanatics that twist a Bible full of hopes for their own demented purpose. They travel to the funerals of our war fallen, our American heroes, proselytizing their perverted and twisted truth. These protesters use the backdrop of the broken and the service of those who sacrificed everything as a platform for their message of hate.
Everything I stood for, they were coming against. Everything this young man stood for and gave his life for, they mocked.
It was another surreal moment of who would protest a funeral.
It was really upsetting to know that someone would want to come and disrupt our special time to say goodbye to our son, who was fighting so that they could have the freedom to come in and picket.
I knew I wasn't going to probably go out there and start busting some heads, but I was going to do everything I could to make sure that that didn't happen.
And I could see across the way a few of the people with their signs, and just down the street, I heard this sound. When I saw them, I was overwhelmed by the fact of the cavalry's here.
It was just absolutely wonderful to see them ride up on their motorcycles with their flags.
I've seen a lot of great things. I can tell you this is right up there, because on their faces was the look of, we'll take care of it. We've got this thing covered. And they did.
I probably would have gone to jail that night. I don't know what I would have done, but it wouldn't have been good.
You want to go and you want to go hit them or do something violent to them. But at the same time, you know you can't. You know that it's the antithesis of what we're supposed to do.
You know, they're out dying so that we can enjoy what we're doing at home. You know, and the least we can do is be there for the families.
Everything these guys stood for was that this young man, in this case that day, Brennan Gibson, was going to be treated and was going to be honored in the way that he should, and there would be no interruptions.
The Patriot Guard Riders were formed in response to that to shield the family from these people, shield them physically with our bodies and our flags.
If they get too loud, fire up a couple motorcycles, shuts them right down. Now, obviously, that's the way to do it. And what that is a It's a very powerful thing to do, to nullify idiots like that.
These rough and even tougher looking guardians come from every walk of life imaginable. With over 186,000 members nationwide and climbing, they are motivated by a sense of fairness and hell-bent on ensuring that those who have paid the ultimate price of freedom receive the funeral and respect they deserve.
We've been out here when it's been below freezing. We've been out here in the pouring rain, the snow, the sleet, wind blowing. We feel that it's the least that we can do for what they've paid.
To have an organization like this there for families of fallen service people is a godsend.
If there's a little bit of a way that I can help to give back part of what they've lost, just even though it's very minor compared to what they're giving up, I'd jump at the chance.
Even though I've done 250 or 300 of these, each one is different, each family is different, each setting is different. You know, we all feel it.
I feel very honored to be a part of this organization. For me, it's very cathartic.
We're not a political organization in any way, and when we get together, we're all Americans and we're all here for the same purpose, and that is to honor the fallen hero.
Some within their ranks have never served a day in the military. Some join the group because of a first-hand experience they've had with the group at a funeral for their family member. And some, like Nick Kindler, a veteran of the Vietnam War, wants to make sure that the way that they were treated when they came home never happens to anyone again.
When we came back from Vietnam, we came back as pariahs. I was never spit on, but I was called a baby killer. I was denounced. This will never happen again. As long as I'm alive, as long as Patriot Guard is around, this will never happen again.
Recently, the United States Supreme Court has announced that it will adjudicate the case of Snyder versus Phelps. This case speaks directly to the issue of First Amendment free speech and the responsibility of those using it. Our liberties as a nation are precious, powerful, and pure. Yet with those established freedoms comes a level of responsibility to the premise and promise for which they were established. May the liberty and justice for all, so pledged by all who recite our Pledge of Allegiance, be garnered and honored for those who willingly gave us the greatest gift of all.
I've been on the other side of the flag line 3 times. It's a different feeling. And what we do makes a difference.
Okay, there's more to that. If you're invited to watch it on YouTube, it's called The Last Defense, if you want to see the whole thing. I don't know if you guys are experiencing the lag I saw in the video and the audio, but I guess you got the gist of it. So what I like to do is explain in a little more detail, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. So as you saw in the video, this started in August of 2005 in Kansas when the Westboro Baptist Church showed up to begin protesting and trying to push their agenda at KIA funerals. And this group of American Legion riders there decided that wasn't good, and so they began to block visually those protesters. The first occurred at the funeral of Army Staff Sergeant John Doles, who was killed in action, and that took place in his funerals in Oklahoma. And at that point, the Patriot Guard Riders name was established, and a campaign began to make it go nationwide. The original motto of the group was called Riding with Respect, and now there's a second motto called Standing for Those Who Stood for Us. The mission has since grown to include all honorably discharged veterans and first responder deaths. Currently, this is a 501c3 registered organization. It's 100% volunteers. with about a little over 350,000 members nationwide and established in all 50 states. Here in Texas, the Patriot Guard Riders of Texas is also a registered charitable organization. We have about 8,900 members here. Again, it's a 100% volunteer organization. No one is paid. So I think in that respect, it's somewhat unique. From the president of the national organization on down, there's nobody that gets a salary from this thing. There is also no cost to families for our participation. It's never been any kind of a charge for our folks to show up and participate. Organizational expenses are minimal, covered by merchandise sales on the national level and donations. But again, the individual riders cover their own costs. It's a matter of water and flags and website services, that kind of thing. The Texas Gathering Guard is an annual state level fundraiser that we have, usually in April. Of course, this year, for obvious reasons, that didn't happen. Participation is open to anyone with respect and gratitude toward those who serve. So despite what you see on the video and such, you do not have to be a motorcycle rider to participate. You don't have to be a veteran either. This is a completely non-political organization. One thing I have learned being involved in this is patriotism knows no political party. So that any kind of that thing is left at the door when we get together. It's not a motorcycle club. We don't have dues. We don't have minimum participation requirements. We don't have meetings to attend. It's just a 100% volunteer. If you can make it, you go. There's no required uniforms or gear, and the primary role is to stand silently holding a U.S. flag for about half an hour. It's really that simple. Here in Texas, this is how we're broken down into 11 different regions. The Austin region's here in the center here, all the way from Edwards County to the west, all the way to Burleson County to the east. The bulk of our activities take place here in Central Texas. As far as all these regions go, I think North Texas does the most, because obviously Dallas-Fort Worth, they also have a national cemetery there. So they stay pretty busy, and as well as East Texas also. So this organization, we do have some organization, obviously. So we have a state captain and an assistant state captain, and in each of those 11 regions has a deputy state captain. I'm that person for the Austin region. And each region then has ride captains and flag wranglers. So I've been talking about missions here a little bit, and that's just what we call our official public activities. We call them missions. This is probably a result of the majority of our members being veterans, and this carried over from the military. The DSC, the way these works, the DSC works out the details of each mission with the requester and then assigns a ride captain and a flag wrangler. The ride captain runs the day of activities of the mission, and then the flag wrangler brings the flags and water to the mission. Obviously, that person's driving a truck or a van or something to bring the flags and the water. Especially in the summertime, water is a big deal, cold water. In 2019, in the state, we conducted approximately 2,500 missions. That's a combination of funerals and other events, which we'll talk about a little bit here shortly. So types of missions and how they happen. Funerals is probably the most things that we do. We receive an invitation from a family member directly or through the funeral home. We don't invite ourselves. We don't solicit our services. And the invitation has to come from a family member to make sure that they really do want us there. Then in general, we form a flag line in front of the church or funeral home for about 30 to 40 minutes prior to the service. We stand there silently for that length of time as people arrive. Usually once the service starts, we strike that flag line. Sometimes it's a cemetery only event, in which case we'll form the flag line for the duration of the cemetery service. And then sometimes there's both. There's a funeral, and then there's a procession from the church to the cemetery, and then there's a second flag line at the cemetery. So this is what a flag line looks like. This particular photo is from the funeral of Richard Overton, who many of you probably remember. He was the oldest U.S. World War II veteran, lived here in Austin. He passed away in 2018 at the age of 112. And this is from his January 2019 funeral service. We had a big turnout for that, of course. This is another flag line for different service. This happens to be at Cook Walden in Pflugerville, but it's just for another veteran, nobody famous, nobody of notoriety. The reason I wanted to include this is over here at the far left is Hugh Strawn, and he brings his grandson sometimes, who is a Cub Scout. So this probably happened on a Saturday. He wasn't in school, and I just think that's the coolest thing when we get to do some mentoring with the youngsters, and they're able to stand there silently for that long. It's hard enough for adults, much less kids. Further missions, airport recoveries. This is when we have an active duty death, and the remains are returned to ABIA from out of state. And we get invited by the family or funeral home or sometimes law enforcement, and there's a ramp side ceremony when the flag draped casket comes off the plane. And most often we're allowed to go onto the tarmac. Airport ops brings us and the law enforcement and the hearse and the family to the ramp, to the gate of the airplane. And we stand there respectfully while the plane arrives and the water cannons. ABIA does a great job, by the way. They set up a water cannon salute as the plane comes off the runway and enters the ramp area, and then the casket's unloaded. And it's probably one of the more emotionally charged things that we do is to see a family come face to face with their lost loved one for the first time. And then what happens after that is we have a law enforcement escort from ABIA to wherever the funeral home is. We did one of these just 2 weeks ago now. There was an active duty Navy sailor who had passed away in California, and he was returned to Central Texas. And the procession went from ABIA out to Giddings. And the organizers had done a really good job of letting everyone know between Austin and Giddings that this procession was going to be coming through. And as a result, the roadway was lined with people holding flags and saluting, old people, young people, you name it. A small town Texas turns out for their veterans. And so when we see this, it's very heartwarming, and it's very personally rewarding to us individually to be part of the honor that is being shown to this lost service member and their family. Furthermore, some of the more fun things we do that don't involve someone passing away, home presentations to wounded warrior. There's some organization that build homes for disabled veterans who were seriously injured in battle. And so we are sometimes invited to those events where the groundbreaking takes place, or the finished home is presented to the veteran and his family. So it's always fun to meet them and talk to them and ride in procession and have fun with that. Other special events that occur, again, a sponsor invites us, and there's usually a procession or a flag line or maybe both. And those might include welcome homes from soldiers being returned from deployment. We do a thing every fall at the Dell Diamond, which is actually it's in the spring, come to think of it, probably won't happen this year. The Dell Diamond has a salute to veterans, and we get to ride out onto the warning track and be part of the opening ceremony for that event. And then, of course, the Field of Honor. You all are familiar with that. That's a fantastic patriotic event that we really enjoy being a part of. And not all requests can be honored. Sometimes we get overbooked, which is the worst of them all, when we get 3 missions in a day, and there's just no way we can handle more than that. So our goals going forward here, we would like to grow the membership always. You never can have too many people in the flag line. We averaged last year 12 people in the flag line, which I personally think is pretty good, but I'd like to make that make that bigger. Of course, we all would like to something that's as worthwhile as this to grow. And as a result, add to our ride captain and flag wrangler ranks, and be able to honor more veterans. This isn't for everybody. I mean, not everyone wants people coming to a funeral, which is such a traumatic event in anyone's lives, and not everybody wants motorcycle-looking guys holding flags at it. But we've always found that it's been worthwhile for us, and we do make a difference. So I'd like to just take a minute to tell you a little bit about that. When I first started doing this in 2006, I came home and told my wife, what I did, and she looked at me kind of quizzically, and she said, "That sounds a little odd." And in reality, she was right. Going to strangers' funerals and being a volunteer mourner did seem a little odd, and not to least of which those bikers don't have the greatest reputation in popular culture. But what you do realize is you see what difference it makes. You see the people arriving and the look on their face when they see a line of strangers holding American flags silently. You see it when they thank you. They walk the line and they thank you for being there, and you see it in a procession. Like I just mentioned, going from here to Giddings, you see it in the eyes and hearts of the community, who would not maybe have otherwise even noticed that this veteran had passed away, but now he gets the last moment of recognition, and his family, that's possible. So there is a great deal of there's a reward that it's hard to articulate. It's something you do just like the Rotary does. That's one thing that also struck me about Rotary. The motto of service above self, and the humility of doing something for which you expect no reward, no recognition, is self-fulfilling, and it's a unique and patriotic experience. What we do is stand there silently with a flag for half an hour. So I wanted to offer an invitation to you guys, not that you need to show up on a motorcycle or look like a biker, but I plenty of missions I've driven to in my car, in my office clothes, and stood in the flag line for 30 minutes. So I think it's something I would invite you to try and see what you think of it. Even if you only do it once, then you'll have an experience that you'll remember for a long time. And finally, I want to close with this. Katie Hayes was a photographer who shadowed us back in 2011 as we did a number of missions for about 6 months. And she has posted all these photos, and she created a project out of it. And on her website, she has this quote. She says, "While I'm no longer photographing this project, I do believe that the PGR serves an important purpose for the families that do not get to greet their returning soldier with a warm embrace. For many of these families, the PGR is the only community show of support for their loved one, and a reminder that while their loss is stirring, someone will stand and take notice." So with that, I'd like to close, and again invite you, if you're interested, to check it out, give it a try. One thing you'll find too is the people that are involved in the PGR are much like the people you'll find at Rotary. They have warm hearts, they have giving hearts, and they are humble in a way that you wouldn't be surprised to learn. So with that, I thank you, George, and everyone else for your attention.
Mark, I'm sorry, I was talking without taking the time to get my microphone back on. So Mark, thank you very, very much. Great presentation, really, really worthwhile cause, and very exciting to have you here with us today. If you don't mind, we're going to close out our meeting here, and then we'd like you to stay on, if you will, afterwards to be able to answer questions of anyone who has questions about what you do and would like to learn a little bit more. The next thing we have is for announcements for the good of Rotary. Do we have any announcements at this time for the good of Rotary? Or anyone on Zoom or anyone on YouTube Live? I don't see any typed in announcements. Nobody said anything? All righty. So we'll conclude our meeting as we always do with a four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? And third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will be beneficial to all
concerned.
We are adjourned. So does anyone have any questions for Mark? A couple of folks have said on the YouTube live that they very much appreciate what you do, Mark. Thank you for that. And then Raymond has said Patriot Guard Ride is a reflection of the honor of those that serve. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who joined us today for the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Be sure to join us again next Friday right here at noon. Hope you have a wonderful and great weekend, everybody.